Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome and thank you for participating in today's webinar. Today's topic is Working Smart and Safe with Sangfor IAM Authentication, focusing on Sangfor IAM. Our speaker today is Aaron, our Senior Product Manager from Sangfor Marketing Team. After the presentation, we will have a Q&A session. Please type your questions in the Q&A module, and Aaron will reply them one by one. Thank you. The webinar will now start. Let's welcome our speaker, Aaron, from Sangfor Marketing Team.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. This is Aaron from Sangfor. So in this afternoon, the webinar is about Sangfor IAM, work smart and safe with Sangfor IAM Authentication. So we know that last time we have released a new firmware 12.0.25, which is the latest firmware, and this is already released in our community. You can go to check the latest firmware and upgrade to the latest firmware to experience the new features of Sangfor IAM. So in today's webinar, we're going to show you and run some quick demos of Sangfor IAM regarding the authentication, which have been improved a lot since the last release. So we also need some explanation about IAM's improvement, and regarding authentication, we have already said that we can integrate with most of the Wi-Fi vendors, Wi-Fi controllers by the captive portal protocols. So we can see the most popular Wi-Fi access points and controllers in the market is Ruckus, Cisco, and Aruba. Sangfor IAM can all support that as a captive portal server for them regarding authentication. Once the user connecting to their Wi-Fi, they will be redirected to Sangfor IAM for authentication. So by this way, we can provide a unified authentication with different branches, different vendor Wi-Fi access points. And even we're not providing only the authentication for the wireless users, but also the wired connections. The wire connected devices can also be authenticated with Sangfor IAM. So by this way, we're providing unified authentication for wired and wireless devices. This is the one we introduced before for multi-branch scenarios. If the organization have a lot of branches like Sangfor, we have branches over different regions, different countries. So the employees will need to travel in between different branches, so the authentication will become a challenge for the IT managers if there is different Wi-Fi brands in the branch, and the user authentication, if they need multi-time authentication, will not be a good experience for the users who are connecting using the Wi-Fi's. So in this solution, we have our unified centralized management platform BBC for synchronizing the policies and configuring the control policies for users. So whenever the user goes to which branches, he or she will automatically come back online with the authentication stored in the central IAM as a central authentication server. So this is what we call the control any device and anywhere. So in the later slides, we will introduce the authentication methods we have providing in the previous firmware and also in the latest firmware, like how we can help the authentication made easier with Sangfor IAM. So the first authentication we met is a line authentication. So you can see we can create a authentication policy in Sangfor IAM for the guest network, because this is open authentication for the guests, so everyone can access. So here you can see this is the authentication page we create, and when the user connect to the network, connect to the Wi-Fi, they will see this login page. So here is a line logo here, and then if the user click this logo, they will require to input their line accounts. So mostly they are using the email address here. So if we type the LAN account, and the user will automatically get authenticated without approval or register for accounts. And you can see that this device can already access to the network. And here you can see that in our IAM dashboard, you can see the online users. The username is the line accounts, and authenticate by line. And here we log out this user and try to log in again. So you see that the account have been logged in in the browser, have been remembered with the username and password. So user do not need to second time type in the username or password. You just need to click login, and then it will automatically get connected. So you can see that we're trusting the internet access. And after that, we can go to the mobile devices, because nowadays most of the users are using mobile phones for walks, for their daily walk scenarios. So let's take a look at how the mobile devices are authenticated. So it's similar with the PC laptops. There will be an authentication page. If the user clicking the line login, and it will come out with a login, will call out the browser and requires user to authenticate with your username and password, because for this device we also have been logged in, so the user do not need to type in second time username and password. So this is the first authentication method for line. And next is the Facebook, because we know that most of the users are having their Facebook accounts, because line only some of the regions have their have the line accounts. So Facebook is more popular. So let's take a look at how the Facebook login looks like. So at first this device cannot access to the network, and then this is also the login page. We requires the user to type in the Facebook account and password, and then you can see that there was a login successful page to notify the user have been connected to the network. Okay, and we log into our IAM interface to look at how the user's information, online user information. So you can see that in the IAM page, the user have been logged in, and the username have been listed here. So by this way, we can collect the user information, just like Line, we have the username, and for Facebook, we can get their email address. So here we can see that in the online users, it will display by the user's email address here. And then we will try to connect into the network. Okay. And also for different users, we can set different policies. For example, here we can set some block policies for this user to block their like Gmail address or Gmail. And so you can see that we are that, so it can be accessed to the Gmail. And for LinkedIn, it's blocked. So this is for Facebook. By the Facebook authentication, we can provide like flexible authentication, easy authentication for the users, and also we can collect the user information like the user's email address, just like what we showed before in the IAM dashboard. And the next one is about the Gmail authentication. So in the previous projects, some of the customers are requiring for authentication by Gmail, by their own Google accounts here. So we create a authentication method for Gmail, and in the social authentication, we just select the Gmail authentication, and then here is the authentication page that the user will get when they're connecting to the network, and there will be a Gmail login if they're clicking, and then they will require to go to the Google login page to input their username and passwords. Okay, and after that the user will be connected, and we can also go to the IAM page to see that this user have been logged in with your the user online user have been displayed with the user's email address. So also by this way, we can also collect the user's email address for second time marketing. We can send the ads or some information or EDM to this user for marketing usage. And here we log up this user and go to the mobile devices to look to show how the users are the login process in the mobile devices here. It's same that we will get the login page, and then we're required to log in with your to select the Google account for authentication. And after that, it will automatically connect you to the network. So you can see that by Facebook and Gmail authentication, we can get the user's email address, and by collecting the user's email address, we can do marketing based on this database. And also, IAM were providing the easy and simplified authentication by QR code authentication. So mostly in the when we check in the hotels, they will provide us with the username and password for the Wi-Fi connections, but we can provide an easy authentication by just print out the QR code. And here you can see that there's two types of QR code. One is a VIP ROM, one is a standard ROM. And after that, if the user we can stick these two QR code in different ROMs. And after the user connected to the Wi-Fi network by scanning this QR code, they will get different rules with different like bandwidths or different control policies. So let's take a look at how this happens. So this is one user with a VIP account, VIP ROM, and then the other one with a standard ROM. Okay, so these both devices are connected with the scan of the QR code. So we are testing the speed of the VIP ROM and standard ROM. So you can see that the standard ROM has less bandwidth, loading slowly, and the VIP ROM will get higher speed of internet connections. So by this way, the Wi-Fi authentication do not need assistant or the receptionist to like print out the QR code, print out the Wi-Fi account and password, and would automatically the user will know that they will scan the QR code to get the internet access. And after the authentication, it will be automatically assigned with different roles for different users, different ROMs. So this is the better connections, better authentication for the scenarios like hotel rooms. And also based on the QR code authentication scenario, for example, in the organizations, they're holding the conference for like education universities, they hold the conference for scholarship, for scheduled meetings. So they need to provide Wi-Fi authentication for the students. They're coming from different universities. So previously they may need to provide the same accounts like PSK per share key for the users, but it's not safe. They can leak this account, the password for other users. Then they can also share these internet connections. So let's take a look at how Sangfor IAM help to solve the simplicity of internet connections and also the user authorization and access control. So here we can, in Sangfor IAM, we can create a QR code based authentication, and in this QR code, we can give it the name like a Chinese class or Chinese conference, and the QR code name, like please scan this QR code to get internet access. And there, together with the QR code, there will be an ID. So later you will know what this ID will be used for. And also we can set the maximum users who can access, because in the previous way when we share the password by the PSK keys, it will there was no limitation for these users. And by controlling via the QR code, we can limit the maximum users who can access by this QR code. And we can set the valid period for, like, for example, we can valid for if the meeting holds for like 3 days, we can valid for 3 days. If there's and after that, we can print out this QR code. And also we can add some attributes for this guest. They need to fill in the forms, for example, the username, which college this user coming from. And also we can create based on the requirement. For example, you want to add your own attributes for that you want the users to fill in, that you can also customize that. Okay, after that we just get this QR code. So you can see that here is a QR code that is generated by IAM, and you can print this out and or just display by the projector when the conference starts. And here you can see that there was a QR code and a description, and also there was an ID. Okay, so if you are connecting with a mobile device, so we can using your smartphone, your phone to scan this QR code to get accessed. Okay. So here we have a smartphone, and we just open the QR code scan features to scan this QR code, and then we were required to input some user information like the username and like surname and the family name, and also the email address. So you want to collect the user's email address information. And after that, you can see that it's automatically logged in without to apply accounts. And what about the PCs? Because the smartphone has a camera that can scan the QR code, but the PC is it's hard to scan the QR code. So also we can, if this is the PC, we can use the QR code ID for logging. So just like here is the smartphone, we can also connect to the Wi-Fi, and clicking with the captive portal. Also we can type in the ID, and same as the previously we are logging with the input the information. Okay. So this is what the process of the PC looks like. So here required for the ID. Remember that in the QR code we have the QR code, and also we have the ID that requires users to input the ID. Okay. So after the user inputs the ID, it's same with the previous process that you have to input the information, and then the user will be authenticated automatically. Okay, so this is for the QR code authentication in the specified area, specified ROM that the user, for example, the conference ROM, the meeting ROM, or the universities where a lot of people are gathering in the same space, that we can print out this QR code for the sharing internet access. And the next one is the scan the QR code with direct approval scan. So this is for the organizations. We have our partners who are guests coming to visit our organization. For example, Sangfor, we have a partners visit for monthly from our regions. So we need to give them the internet access. So we don't need to create an account for them before they come. We can create a QR code here. Authentication policies. So they just can scan this QR code and connect to the Wi-Fi network, and on their devices, on their smartphone, their PCs will pop out with a QR code, and then they go to the approver. For example, the Sangfor assistant or receptionist. They with your smartphone scan this the QR code on the guest smartphone, and then they will be authenticated. So here we can assign a user of, for example, of Sangfor as an approver, and then we create this policy for the QR code authentication. So this user have been logged in. So for example, this is the PC from the guest who brings and connect to our guest network, and it will pop out with this QR code, and he will go to the receptionist or assistant. He or she will use his smartphone to scan this QR code, and then it will automatically authenticate it. And you will check out, for example, the online username will be the approver's name, and then the authentication method is by account password or QR code scanning. So we will trace back if there was any security incidents, if the user done something risky or on inappropriate internet access. We can provide the logs of the users who did that in our in IAM. And instead of the direct approve and scan and approve the user access, we can also, after you ask the users to fill in the form, like to input their informations, who input their personal informations like a company or a user ID. So here we're similar with the configuration page. We have another choice here. First one is fill in the form and then generate the QR code, and approver scan the QR code and then log in. So let's take a look at how the process look like. So we create a policy here, and we require the users to input their, for example, their ages in the authentication process. Okay, so here it's saying that we can assign a user to be an approver. Okay, so when the guests come in, connect to the Wi-Fi, they will pop out with authentication page, and at first it will require them to input their personal information like username and age here. So after we input this information, then we can get the QR code. So by this way, we can collect the user information for analyze and also for audit based on the regulations and the compliance. So you can see that it will display the user information, the username and age. So this is another QR code scan authentication. The user have to fill in the form to input their personal information, and after that they can get the QR code. So by this way we can collect the user's information instead of directly proof and get the user connected. So previously the authentication method we introduced is the user have to connect it to the Wi-Fi, but this is mostly for the guest authentication. But for like the internal user authentication, or you want the user to register with their own accounts. So how can IAM help in these scenarios? So in this authentication, we call this is self-registration by auto-proof. So it means that the user create their own accounts, but they don't need any approve. So this is mainly for the guest authentication. So let's take a look at how this authentication process look like. So in Sangfor IAM, we can create the authentication by user registration policy. So we can add some attributes here. What the user have to input. The username and password is must be, because this is what the user are required for login. And after that, we can add, like, for example, email address or phone numbers or home address, and name, ages. So here we can select the user need to approve or not. So in this scenario, we just approval is not required. So it means that the user will automatically get approved when he or she create their own accounts. Sorry, seems the display have some problems. So we will go to where we left before. So we will require the users input their informations here, fill in the forms, like nationality, and in the approve options, we can be select approver, need approval or not, or approver is required. And advanced the policies, we can specify the valid period for the users. And here we create authentication policy for applying for the users who need to authentication. And in the authentication method, we just select local database and enable self-registration. Just select the policy we just created before. Okay, so we go to the user interface, and after the user connected to the network, he will, for example, this is the first login. They require the authentication by username and password, but actually they don't have the username and password, so they can click register here, and then just input their username, create their own accounts. Like we could Steven and password here, and input it requires user input their personal information like email address we set up before, like name and nationality. Okay, so it just register because we set the user registration without approval, so the user can authenticate and authenticate with the administrator's approval, can directly get connected to the network. Okay, so this is the first scenario that mainly for the guest or the partners that they don't require the administrators for approval that will but we can also set up the control policies that these kind of users can only access to the internet without internal authentication, without internal access. And the other self-registration method is that we requires manual approval. So it means that, for example, this is for the new employees that the join Sangfor. We don't need to create a new account for them. They can create their accounts by, for example, their work ID. So, but this one will need IT approval because we have to identify whether this is the employees that were coming where this is the appropriate users. Okay, so let's take a look at how the manual approval looks like. So here we will also create, it's similar with the previous one, we will create the authentication policy for self-registration and requires for the username and password. So we need their email address. And then we will require them for the names. And also these attributes as saying that we can customize what you want, not only the default ones in the in the system. And also in the approval options, we just set up we need approval and specify the users for example, for never expire. And then we will apply these authentication policies for the users and enable the self registration. So we go to the user interface. So when the user connect to the network, they will get the captive portal, and then requires them to create their own accounts here and input their username, password, and email address and a name. But the difference is that we will need the administrators to approve the request of the registration. So you can see that the information is submitted. Please wait for administrators to approve your request. So we go to the administrators page. So we will have a separate administrators interface, which is only used to approve this kind of request for the new users registration. So you can see that we are logging with a different account here. It's not an admin account. So we see that we have the new request here. And then we can select this new request, and we'll see the informations to identify whether this is the right users we need to approve. So after we approve that, and we try again, and we log in with the account we created before. So you can see that this user can authenticate via the registration approve process. So this is actually the reception interface, and we log in with the admin interface here. And we go to the online users to see that the newly registered user. Okay, see, you can see that the user have been online, and also we can see the user's attributes like email address, surname, ages. So for each user, you can check their detailed informations. Okay, so this is the sharing session for the new authentication method provided by Sangfor IAM. So to summarize that, we have the social media logging like Facebook, Gmail, and Line, and also we have the simplified authentication for like hotel rooms, for the conference rooms. So we can print out a QR code for different areas, for different rooms with different authorities for internet access, and also for the users that requires their username a password, they can register, and we can set up the need to approval or automatically create their account and access. So thank you guys for coming to this session.
Okay, thank you for your sharing, Aaron. We will now have a Q&A session. Please type your questions in module. Aaron will answer them one by one. Thank you. Okay, here we got the first question from Matthew. Can IAM set different authentication methods at the same time, like Gmail and Facebook?
Okay, the first question is about the can we set different authentication for at the same time, like we said that Gmail and Facebook? Because for the scenarios like is that not every user have line, but we providing the public Wi-Fi or internet access. If we only provide one authentication, some of the users were not able to authenticate. So for Sangfor IAM, we can provide all of the authentication we provided before. We can set up the authentication at the same time. For example, we can provide Line, Gmail, and Twitter also for and also Facebook. The users or guests can select which account they have, and then they can choose the authentication method. And so the answer is that yes, we can set up the different authentication method at the same time. Okay, here is another question about from Cornelia. Can I use Facebook Authenticate if I block or the Facebook access? So for Facebook authentication, there was some actually for the port authentication, we will allow the Facebook traffic only for Facebook access. So there was some API and there was some Facebook servers. IAM have to connect with Facebook servers. So this kind of traffic will be allowed, but all the other traffic will be blocked. So by this way, we can access to we can use Facebook for authentication.
Okay, the second question is that is authentication built in IAM or need third-party captive portal server?
Actually, for IAM, we can serve as a authentication server, providing authentication services for the users. But there was different scenarios. For example, in the inline mode or the gateway mode, we deploy at the network. So we will be serving as authentication server. So this authentication is building IAM. We don't need any additional services or additional license for this kind of authentication. As we mentioned before, we're supporting the integration with Wi-Fi controllers. So in this scenario, for example, there's different branches. We can set up one separate IAM only for authentication. So in this scenario, IAM will deploy or as authentication mode, and just act as the authentication servers like the other captive portal servers. But all of these authentication services or features are building IAM. We don't need third-party servers or services for this kind of social media logging or QR code authentication. So it's all building without any additional license.
Okay, if there are no more questions, this will be the end of today's webinar. We hope to see you again. And if you have any other questions, please visit our website or send us an email. Thank you again for your participation today.